Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sharon. I'm with the Statewide Internet Portal Authority. With us is Jason Bovee from Istonish, who's going to share an awesome package that they have put together for small governments for secure endpoints. If you're having any trouble hearing us, you're welcome to use your phone to dial in using the phone number 719-359-4580 and the webinar ID of 850-4600-0224. And hopefully you'll be able to call in then. And we are going to have everybody muted for now. And then once we get to the end of the presentation, we'll unmute everybody and you can ask questions if you'd like then, or raise your hand or ask in the chat during the presentation. We'll have a couple of poll questions for you during, and then also at the end, we'll have a post survey that we hope you'll fill out to help us out with future ones. With that, I will turn it over to you to Jason. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sharon. I really appreciate it. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate you giving me some time to be able to go through the secure endpoints for government offerings. So the way we've structured this presentation is to basically go over a little bit about Istonish, just a few slides there, and then really dig into some of the IT challenges that we see that small local governments have across the state of Colorado and of course outside of Colorado's boundaries as well. Go into some of the consequences if those challenges are not met appropriately. And then that was really the genesis of this offering that we put together for small local governments. We have some enterprise tiers and pricing. It shows how the whole deal is structured, how the offering will grow over time, and how some economies of scale are going to pass down to the participants in the different tiers. And then we have some, of course, a la carte options that we're able, because we know that not every IT environment is cookie cutter. So after that, some questions. To kick us off here about Istonish, we are a local Colorado organization celebrating about 31 years of business. We are woman and Native American owned. We do over half of our business with state and local governments. So it's really where we've put a lot of our efforts, and it's an area of business that we really enjoy working in. Outside of that, of course, we do Fortune 1000, SMB, and commercial organizations. We do provide nationwide service for some of the organizations, but most of our customers are right here in Colorado. We are headquartered in Denver. Our mission statement is that we help organizations, individuals, and our community to be great. And the really focus here is the community. We really want to put together offerings that help our community. Or again, our focus on public sector is really deep ingrained in what we do. We have several different current customers for each one of our different service offerings. So from service desk, endpoints, network data center, app dev, and we still, of course, do some technical talent acquisition, some voice, and everything we do is wrapped in security, but we have security offerings as well. So here are some of the public sector clients, both in and outside of Colorado, that we work with, and some commercial clients as well. But specifically with the work we've been doing with SIPA, over 30 years, and we've been able to really do quite a bit of work with a lot of the different agencies or organizations, especially the state and local across the state. So it's work we're proud of, and obviously we do quite a bit of work there. We've been able to be very successful, and hopefully been able to help our community quite a bit in helping out in some of those organizations. So the challenges that we had seen come to the forefront, either more recently or throughout the history of dealing with some of these different organizations, is that there's several different types of categories really that we want to look at here. First, of course, is cybersecurity. We've noticed that especially with public sector, usually you're going to have the name of a city manager or the director or anybody who is in a position that's been elected. Obviously, it's public information. Public information is used by bad actors to be able to target public organizations, especially if you're doing, say, a spear phishing or some sort of other attack. So we've seen an increase in public sector organizations to be targeted. There are minimum requirements now that are expected, both from the Colorado Attorney General and just best practices across the board for cybersecurity for small state and local government. And then, of course, we've seen this push to IT anywhere, which is really a term that's been catching on a little bit more recently. It's really about the move, not just to work from home before or during the pandemic. It was something that happened quite a bit. It was a trend that was going on. It was really hyper accelerated by the pandemic, but the technology didn't keep up. People had to still either VPN in or go into their on-premise location to be able to receive security updates, patches, and the like. Well, that just doesn't cut it these days from a security perspective. You've got to be able to be patched and secure from wherever you work, and increasingly, that's not actually in a place of work. It's at home. Labor is also another very big topic here, right? So we've got quite a bit of turnover in the IT labor market. It is costly. Labor costs are going up quite a bit, especially in the Rocky Mountain West and Colorado specifically. We have a lot of delineation between on-site and remote, right? So it's going to be usually cheaper to be able to have remote support, but there's always going to be the need to have on-site support. And of course, you have to cover multiple disciplines. That slide that I showed for our service catalog, from service desk to end user support to network systems, data center, it's a lot of different disciplines that you've got to be able to staff in. And while you can have a jack of all trades and a master of none, it's usually not the best idea when you're looking at making sure your IT is up and running and available for what it's needed. Budget, obviously a main concern there. Labor is a factor there, but there's also increasing costs of licenses. Just in the past year, from 22 to 23, Microsoft licenses went up about 20% across the board. That's something that we're seeing as a trend, of course, not quite as much as that 20% that we saw with Microsoft, but still quite a bit. Hardware costs are increasing. Supply chain is still an issue. The superconductor industry is still suffering. So hardware costs are obviously an issue that is of prime concern. And then, of course, looking at big capital expenditures, especially when you have large IT projects, all of this leads to those capital expenditures being much, much larger than they were last year and in years past. And moving over to an operational expense model, especially in the public sector where you need to forecast budgets, you got to put in for line items. That's something that obviously is a lot more palatable. Technology, the life cycle is always an issue, right? It's something where most end user devices need to be replaced between, say, 3 and 5 years, depending on its use case and how powerful the device is. And that's something that is a challenge to keep up with. Standardizing those means that you have an easier time supporting the devices because they're all standardized, and it lowers your attack surface from a cyber perspective as well. And then, of course, being able to encrypt those devices. And encryption is important, especially when we look at this next bullet here, data and compliance. If you're not able to encrypt your devices, or if you're not purchasing a device that's capable of storing a local encryption key, which a lot of home-oriented devices are, say if you were to pick up a laptop or desktop from Costco or Best Buy, there's a chance that it might not have the ability to store its own encryption key, which puts a lot of data at risk if you do encrypt, which obviously is recommended. But if you're storing PII, PCI, etc., then that's something where you've really got to make sure that encryption is there. And then, of course, the elephant in the room, last but certainly not least, is insurance. The ability to show your compliance with all of these different categories of technology is increasingly challenged. And so you need a unified technology solution across all of those that really is going to put you best foot forward in all of them. And it's just a difficult nut to crack, especially for small local government organizations that aren't at the grade of these enterprise operating agencies, but they still need those enterprise grade solutions. The challenges, of course, have consequences if they're not met from a cybersecurity perspective. Of course, we can see data breaches. I thought about going into details on all of those, but I think that everyone on this webinar has likely seen the statistics. They've seen the names show up in the news. We know that the need is there. So we have organizational and personal loss that's also a problem, right? You can see that there are some individuals who will be taken advantage of from their own personal banking, or it could be the organization that suffers a loss due to inappropriate or not cybersecurity, not the level that it needs to be. Ransomware is another big one, right? The ability to have somebody come in and just lock up all your files, and of course, there's no guarantee you're going to get those files back, even if you do pay. IT labor, right? So what this ends up with is non-technical support. You have people who are usually wearing a technical hat. They're doing something else inside of the organization. They might be a financial person that just happens to be technical, so they become the de facto technical person. They might be somebody who's close to the organization, a family member or a friend that ends up doing the support, and it's not exactly the best scenario because capabilities may be limited, availability is a concern. And it's a revolving door, right? We've seen this even in our industry. We have to make sure to keep a base level of personnel on the teams that we staff to ensure that we're able to rise to the challenge that our customers put in front of us. But as a more enterprise grade provider, we've got the benefit of being able to do that. Availability, again, I mentioned is a pretty big factor. And all this leads to just ineffective support. You have people who really want their technology to be able to be used in a very transparent fashion. It just works. It's like a good, reliable car. You get in, you turn the key, and it gets you from point A to point B. That's how technology should operate, but it's got to do so securely as well. And in budget. So we've seen escalating costs. We're seeing those expiring software just pop out of nowhere. Either the terms have changed, or maybe just the expiration of the software wasn't tracked. So all of a sudden you've got an expense that you weren't aware of. Buying small means that you're paying more. If you have an organization that's got more buying power, then you're usually able to get a better deal. From the technology perspective, you're talking about old equipment. So maybe it's just gotten to the point where it's not quite operating as well as it should. You're not able to get as much done as reliably as you were in the past. And that could be for equipment that is just 2-3 years old. Again, it depends on the specs of the equipment when it was purchased and its use case. You have multiple different models, right? So you have a lot of different types of technology models of computer endpoints, laptops, desktops that you need to patch. That just increases the complexity and the challenge, and of course, the cybersecurity risk. And not all of that leaves exposed data, especially if you're not able to encrypt your devices because it's not an enterprise-grade device. It's more of a home-based device. Exposed data is just not something you want to deal with here. From data and compliance, I have House Bill 1128 down here. It was passed in 2018. It's the bill in Colorado that really defines not only what PII is, but how quickly you need to report in the case that you have a breach of PII. Colorado has one of the most strict definitions of what constitutes sensitive PII, and that could be as little as name and address, name and phone number. Information that actually is publicly available and would be considered non-sensitive PII in Colorado is considered sensitive PII. So you've got to rise to that challenge if you house that kind of data. Unable to secure the data means that you are unable to insure the data. And if you're not able to get insurance, cyber insurance especially, then that means that you self-insure, which is just a big roll of the dice. It's not something that we'd like to see, but we're hearing those conversations happen more and more for our customers in the public sector. So all of this came together and we said, okay, we've got a challenge here. We've got these small local governments that need the enterprise grade support. So how are we going to be able to put something out there that really meets these challenges? Especially because we're looking at much smaller organizations. We're talking maybe 5, 10, 20 people in the office. You still need to have the enterprise protections. But how are you going to do so without having the economy of scale of the people that have 100, 200, 300 employees, 300 endpoints, and they're able to kind of see that economy of scale? Well, let's see if we can just put an offering out there that we can get a lot of participation in. And the way we can meet these challenges is from a cybersecurity perspective. It's got to have antivirus and malware, multi-factor authentication, and full remote patching and management, so that way, no matter where people are, their computers are up to date, they're patched. The most often used exploits to get into to workstations and laptops are just not available, even at the small government level. From an IT labor perspective, well, as a MSP that's in the top 25% of all MSPs in size, we have an amazing team. All of our programs are PM led. This is no different. We have a project manager that leads it. We have 3 tiers of technical resources. We are criminal justice information systems certified, so we're able to deal with sheriffs, local police, courts, and that type of data systems. We have on-site and remote support, and I can, there's a map a little bit later in the presentation that shows where our people are, but we've got a team all across the state, which means that we can be anywhere very quickly across the state on-site. And that's a big deal, because on-site people are typically one of the ones where we've seen the cost rise in Colorado, especially year over year, to the field service technicians. But of course, we've got remote technicians too, mostly here in Colorado. We do have a small team in Tennessee as well, because we support the city of Memphis, but we support city and county of Denver, city of Colorado Springs, and CDHS, a lot of organizations across the state. So we've got mostly, even our remote support people that you call will be in Colorado, which means we're highly available. You know, we're staffed to be able to make sure we've got the appropriate number of people to be able to either answer the phone when needed or dispatch when needed. So that is what really for us constitutes an enterprise level of support, is that you've got these multiple tiers, you're never one layer deep, you've got the protections in place. So you're looking at an enterprise offering. From a budget perspective, you have that enterprise buying power. You have a really minimal onboarding, right? So if you look at looking down the barrel at, say, a computer refresh, and you've got 10 computers, say roughly about $2,000 per setup, well, that's going to be about $20,000 to be able to get done. So we wanted a way to be able to make that a little bit more palatable. We wanted something that was all inclusive, right? So hardware, software, labor, you have one invoice and you are completely covered from an endpoint perspective. Everything is there for you. You don't have to worry about the updates. Everything stays licensed, stays up to date. And that's going to lead to where you've got a forecastable operational expense. You get the updates and the refreshes. So if it's a new version of the software that's going to either patch something that needed to be patched, or just bring it up to date on the latest version, then that's included. But so too is the workstation refresh. So between years 3 and 4, with this offering, a new laptop is already built into the program. So we would be reaching out to you to say, hey, you're between 3 and 4 years. We need to work with you and your organization to roll out new laptops for you, and just schedule a time to do that. And that's no additional fee at that time. It's all included in the program. Some technology includes a laptop and a monitor. Make sure that you keep up to date there. It includes asset management, so we can provide that. That's something a lot of insurance providers need, or just that your local people need to know from a positive control of hardware perspective. They know what makes and models and serial numbers they've got out there. Again, I mentioned that 3 to 4 year refresh. Everything is standardized as far as the hardware goes. It's all the same model, and that allows us to say, if we receive a call from a user and they're having trouble with a laptop, our remote service desk determines that it is a hardware issue, then we're able to send one of our desktop people on site with a laptop from our bench stock. We swap out the laptop, we get that user back up and going as quickly as possible, and then repair the down machine, reimage it, get it back into the queue for the next person that might need it. And of course, device encryption. We only roll out enterprise-grade machines, and we keep encryption keys. So in the event that there is a situation where we need to decrypt a drive, we have the ability to do so. It's data loss is no longer a concern from a poorly stored encryption key. So from a compliance perspective, we've designed a solution that meets most insurance requirements. 95% of the requirements that we've seen, it varies by provider, but they're going to ask for this antivirus, malware, patching, Duo, multi-factor authentication, all of that. So we've designed the solution to meet those insurance requirements. We also are providing security training. It's something else that we've seen that's more and more often required by insurance providers. And so a monthly security training, it's usually a, say, 3 to 7 minute fun little training. And the good thing about these trainings is that they not only help you be a better operator at your place of work, but that's replicated at home. So we've seen those behaviors in both places. They're usually replicated one in the other. So helping people to become more informed and educated computer operators in general is just good for their own prevention of personal loss and organizational loss. So we have patching, monitoring, and management. And when we say monitoring here, what we're talking about is we're looking at the disk utilization. We're looking at the RAM utilization. We're seeing if there's something that's pegging. This is part of our proactive support model. We want to call you and say, hey, we noticed that you're getting low on hard drive space. What can we do to help you clear up hard drive space? Instead of waiting until that hard drive space runs out, your computer is starting to throw errors, and then you're having to call us. We'd rather be proactive about that. So we're monitoring the performance of the endpoint to make sure that we can preemptively stave off some calls. It's not that we're actually monitoring what's going on the endpoint. And then last but not least here is IT policies. It's something where we're able to push out security policies because these are, of course, centrally controlled enterprise machines, and we're able to really make sure that we're pushing out IT and security policies that make sense from a best practice perspective. So a little bit about the tiers that we have here. So as we scale upwards, we move from this being a smaller program to a larger program. We wanted everyone in the program to be able to benefit from this. So as we get rolling on this program, we've only got a few endpoints enrolled at this point. So we're still at tier 1. So once we get, as long as we're below 99 endpoints participating in the program total, then these are the implementation and monthly fees to be able to get going. So again, that 10 laptop refresh that an organization might be looking for is now a lot more palatable when you're looking at $4.99 per endpoint to get that going. After that, for the labor, that's the remote service desk, the on-site services in the event that it's needed, and there's no limit on that. That's something where we know enough about how to manage endpoints across the state to be able to hedge a little bit of a bet that we know how much it's going to take to be able to send people on site. And this is all across the state. You can be in Vaca County, you can be up in Holyoke. It doesn't matter. We're going to send people on site to fix your issue if an on-site is required. There's no additional fee for that. It's all included. Once we get to the point where we're in tier 2 or maybe tier 3, as we move up, the new implementations for people who may need them reduce in cost, and then the monthly fee for everyone participating in the program goes down. We want this to be a community program because we are community focused. So the more of the community that participates, that's when we see those efficiencies of scale, and we pass those on to our customers that are participating. Once we get past that 300 mark, that's really, we're running about as efficiently as we can at that point. And so that's really just a really solid deal. If you look at all the licensing, the hardware itself, monitor and laptop, refresh included, the total cost of ownership on this thing, again, is something that when you really do the balance sheet, we hope that it makes sense. Again, for those small governments, less than 30 endpoints, if we're looking at going over 30, we already start to see some economies of scale. So we can usually provide discounts for those organizations. And certainly if we're in the 50, 60, 70 endpoint and up range, then these prices do get much, much better. But typically what we see there as well is that if you're an organization that's got 50, 60 endpoints, you probably already have an enterprise grade type of machine and it's standardized. So we have an option to just take the machine and the laptop and monitor out and just bring all the services, all the licensing, all of the labor to be able to support the endpoints as a separate offering. So some options to save some money there for organizations that exceed this 30 endpoint mark. Now, I mentioned that there were some a la carte options. This is something that, again, we've seen different insurance providers have different requirements for what the endpoint needs to have in order for the organization to be insurable from a cyber perspective. One of the top ones that we're seeing that's a very, very big trend lately is endpoint detection and response. Think of this as your antivirus and anti-malware that's kind of on steroids. It's that response part that isn't included in a antivirus or anti-malware type of a program, but we're able to look at different EDR options and either add them as an a la carte option or swap them out from the other antivirus and anti-malware that we use, which is typically Webroot, Colorado-based, highly successful, good price point. So we usually typically go with that. But if we were to need to do, say, a SentinelOne EDR or something along those lines, we've got the option to do so. We have the option to do cloud endpoint backup, secure email gateway, mobile device management. Really, you can read all of these here. We've got a lot of different options. And as you move up in enterprise maturity, that's where you move up in the stack and you kind of see those. As a full service MSP, we just have a lot of different options and capabilities there. So I mentioned the statewide support model, right? So across Colorado, we've got over 80 different sites. Most of those are CDHS offices that we provide support for. That's through a contract with the Office of Information Technology. Of course, through SIPA, what we're trying to do is make it to where the same enterprise grade of service is available to the small state and local government agencies across the state. So because we've got people and we can be anywhere in the state in just a few hours, that means that we've got that capability, and we want to roll it out to organizations outside of CDHS, outside of supporting the History Colorado museums. Really, if it's an organization that needs this type of enterprise support and they need somebody locally, then we very much meet that with our current pool of technicians. And it's something where it's not a terrible thing to have to drive out to Uray or something along those lines to be able to do some support there. Usually our technicians make the most of it and are able to hit the local restaurants and really have an enjoyable time out there as they go and take care of some of our customers. So it's something we really enjoy. So with that, I'll just leave it at my last slide here. I really appreciate the time again and would welcome any questions.
I'm unmuting everyone if you want to ask that way, or you're welcome to put anything in the chat or the Q&A if you'd like. And keep in mind too, with that price that Jason mentioned of the onboarding per person, that is something that we could cover with our microgrants that we offer every year. That one-time cost to get something implemented is one that we do allow. So you can apply for a grant up to $6,500 for something like that. So if that's something you're thinking about, please keep that in mind, and our applications will open on June 1st. Let's see, we have one question in the chat, Jason. Are the a la carte options available if you are not on a monthly plan?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's something that, again, we're as a pre-vetted partner with SIPA, if you wanted to come to us and just get some licenses, just get some service, some project work, really, you name it, I'd welcome any contact along those lines.
Jason, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for doing our webinar today.
No problem. Thank you, Beth.
Yep, and if any of our participants have any questions, please let us know. Sharon will have the video out as well. She's probably going to do all that, but we want you to go ahead and forward this on to your neighbors so that we can get into that lower pricing tier for everyone. That would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions, you can follow up with Jason or myself or Beth afterwards anytime. I can throw our contact info up there for you. And we'd love to hear from you and answer your questions and help you out if possible. So please do get in touch. And we've got a post-survey poll as well. So if you could fill that out, we'd appreciate that, because that helps us out with planning for our next ones. And then if there's anything else we can do for you, let us know. We really appreciate you all joining us. Thank you, Jason, for sharing everything. We love this package and would love for more people to take it up, because I think it would really help out. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and we hope to see you next month. Subscribe to our newsletter for the announcement on the next one.
Thanks all.